everybody, and welcome back to a wrestling podcast with MrEliMac. I am your host, MrEliMac. And before I get into the podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos and podcast updates that I have here on the channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new wrestling podcast episode comes your way. So today, or tonight, or whatever time you're listening to this and watching this, we are going to be going into SmackDown and AEW Rampage. That is right, we're going to be talking about both shows because they both come out on the same night, and so it's just a whole lot easier to just put them both together into one episode. So a lot happened on SmackDown that we are setting up to. The main thing being is that we're getting a WarGames setup, or at least I believe we're getting a WarGames setup because the entire Bloodline had an entire brawl near the main event of the show, the main event segment, with the Brawling Brutes and Drew McIntyre. So what is this telling me? It is telling me that the men's WarGames match is going to be the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes and Drew McIntyre, which means that there is one spot left on the team of the Brawling Brutes, and I have hinted at my fantasy booking for many times of what I would have the fifth member be. I would have Kevin Owens be the mysterious fifth member. I think that Kevin Owens would be great in this role, especially when you have him with his history with Sami Zayn. I feel like he would be a great person to have in this slot, at least in my opinion. I think he would be a great addition to the Brawling Brutes team and Drew McIntyre. Also, what else we had for SmackDown is that we had the tag team title match. If the Usos would win, it would be very much definitive that they are breaking the long reign of the Usos of the New Day, and the New Day wants to be able to defend that honor that they have. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, the New Day were not able to pick up the victory. In fact, this was the first match of the night, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. The first match of the night on SmackDown was the Usos versus the New Day for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team titles, and unfortunately, the New Day were not able to pick up the titles. They were not able to cut the Usos off, and the Usos continue their record-breaking reign as tag team champions. I had a guess this was going to happen, but WWE recently has been able to make these regular shows, these week-to-week episode shows, must-watch TV, because this was a lot of fun. They both have great chemistry with each other, and so it's obvious that no matter what, that these teams were going to have great chemistry, and I am very much excited that they continue to have that chemistry. And it ended with Kofi going to the turnbuckle and jumping off, but then falling into a 1D for the Usos to pick up the victory. And after this, the Usos spoke with Roman Reigns about their victory, and they were so hyped up, and Roman very much didn't look hyped at all, but ultimately in the end being able to be like, no, you did us proud. How's it feel? How's it feel? It must feel great, because we're going to be going out there and we're going to be talking to the audience live. And so that was the main event segment. But yeah, that tag team match was very great, and it seemed like Xavier Woods is hinting at something, because he said that he had nothing left on Twitter. Like, he was hinting that something was going to happen, and I really hope that the New Day don't break up. I really hope they're not pushing the idea of the New Day and Xavier Woods sort of like ending their time together, because I love the team. I love Xavier Woods' energy. I love everything about Xavier Woods, and I really hope that Triple H doesn't decide to end the New Day. I really want the New Day to keep on going, because I love the New Day. Next up, we had an announcement on who were the participants in the World Cup tournament, which the winner of the SmackDown World Cup tournament would get a Intercontinental Championship match against Gunta. The individuals in the tournament are Jinder Mahal, Sami Zayn, Butch, Santos Escobar, Mustafa Ali, Shinsuke Nakamura, Ricochet, and Braun Strowman. Interesting to point out that Mustafa Ali is in the tournament. He is not on the SmackDown brand. That was later confirmed by Fightful Select that he has not been moved to SmackDown. He is still on the Raw brand. They never explained why he is in the tournament, but it is interesting to see that they are moving forward this. I wonder if it was just they realized that, we have a lot of Americans or non-Americans, or we don't have enough non-Americans on our roster, so we sort of have to work with what we got. And so there might have been let's just get in Mustafa Ali, let's just bring him in. Which, if that was the case, I think that was a great move. Mustafa Ali is a great competitor, and I want to see him be able to do more, and I think he'll be able to do the most, honestly, in this tournament. Honestly, I think he would be great on the SmackDown brand in general. I would love to see him go up against the likes of Santos Escobar, Sami Zayn, and the such like that, because I think he needs a refresh, because he's been facing people like Seth Rollins for a long time at this point, and so I think maybe going to a new brand might actually help. So who knows? Who knows what we have in store? But after the announcement, we went into our first match of the tournament, which was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Santos Escobar. It was a very fun match, very intense match. Santos Escobar able to get those high-flying moves and those power moves, while Shinsuke Nakamura being able to get those striking moves. Even freaking Michael Cole mentioning that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be going up against the Great Muta at New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day, in Japan. I love that Michael Cole is more likely to mention other promotions now. I love that they're giving Michael Cole more freedom to just talk about wrestling in general in the entire country instead of just WWE. I love that Michael Cole is getting the freedom to talk about that, because it shows more fluidity, I think, in the realm of wrestling, instead of just, this is the only wrestling promotion in the world and screw everything else. No, I'm very happy that Michael Cole is able to flex his knowledge on wrestling and just on the product in general. Ultimately, in the end, Santos Escobar got the win. He is advancing in the World Cup tournament, getting one step closer to an Intercontinental Championship match with Gunther. After that, we had a promo from LA Knight saying that he was upset that he was not selected to be in the World Cup tournament, but then we had something weird, in my opinion. We had Bray Wyatt interrupting the promo and the interview, and basically he told LA Knight that he knows what to do to get respect and questions how far LA Knight would go to get it. And LA Knight tells Bray to mind his own business. Basically, I'm going to do what I want to do. And then that led to Bray headbutting LA Knight. So now I'm curious if they're going to have Bray's first feud be with LA Knight. I'm very curious if this was just a one-off, or if this is going to be like Bray feuds with LA Knight and then convinces LA Knight to be in his faction. I don't know. I thought this was a weird choice to have Bray interrupt LA Knight, because he's someone that I never expected to see Bray go up against early on. I was expecting somewhat of a bigger name, but then again, if you have him go up against LA Knight and have him beat LA Knight, I don't think that will hurt LA Knight. I think, in fact, just having a major profile match and maybe a major profile feud with Bray Wyatt would help LA Knight, but ultimately this would also help Bray Wyatt, because this is just going to give him a win that I think everyone knows he's going to get. Nothing against LA, but we all know that Bray would definitely be the victor of this rivalry if it does happen, if it's legitimately a thing that's going to be happening. But that's just my opinion. I think it was weird that this is the position that we're going to be putting Bray in early on before doing anything else with him. But yeah, this was just weird for me. This was weird to put LA with Bray. And then we got our women's six-pack challenge. The winner of the match would get a SmackDown women's title match at Survivor Series. The participants were Liv Morgan, Sonya Deville, Raquel Rodriguez, Shotzi, Lacey Evans, and Xia Li. All women in this match are great. I loved all women in this match. They all fought very valiantly. Ultimately, in the end, Shotzi was able to pick up the win, getting that title match at Survivor Series. So we have an idea of what sort of the direction that SmackDown is going to be going in with the women's division. I think Triple H is going to continue to work with the Liv Morgan, pushing the boundaries and being a little bit more hardcore with her. But I think, like, it was sort of time. I think Triple H wanted to move on from Liv Morgan to have a different face go up against Ronda Rousey, because if you constantly have the same people fighting each other for the title over and over again, eventually it will get stale. So I think this was a good move, as of right now, to have Shotzi be the one to pick up the victory, even though I think it would have been interesting to have Raquel go up against Ronda, because, like, bigger competitor versus Ronda Rousey. I think that would have been fun, but as of right now, like, we're going to go with Shotzi. I think it's interesting to go with Shotzi. I think she's great in the ring. I've loved her teaming up with Raquel Rodriguez, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Shotzi and Ronda are going to be delivering at Survivor Series, honestly. I think this could be a very fun match. But then right after that, Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey attack Shotzi backstage. So I think we're finally getting the point where Ronda and Shayna are going to be teaming up with each other, sort of like, because they're friends in real life, so it only makes sense that they team up with each other to go against the other women in the women's division. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this. I mean, I think they even busted Shotzi's lip open. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm very much liking this new direction with Ronda, having her be more of a heel than trying to force her to be a face, which, when you see her, no one naturally cheers Ronda. They naturally boo her because she's not she didn't, like, start in the wrestling industry. She's great in ring. She's a great wrestler for the women's division, but I'm very much liking the idea of her being the heel that no one likes in the women's division. And I also like the idea of her teaming up with Shayna. I'm loving this team up. I hope that it's not Shayna's just the henchwoman for Ronda, like she plays second fiddle, because I do hope it eventually leads to WrestleMania, to where we get Ronda versus Shayna Baszler. I would love for that to be the WrestleMania match, and maybe have Shayna take the belt off of Ronda. That's just my hope. I would love to see Shayna get that rub at WrestleMania. And I feel like Ronda would do it for her friend. I feel like Ronda would willingly drop the belt to Shayna, because, again, they're friends. Like, sure, they would make it a feud where Ronda doesn't like Shayna, and, like, Ronda's like, no, I'm never going to take the belt off of you, or you're not going to take the belt off of me. And then, behind the scenes, it's like Ronda's like, yeah, I'll definitely drop the belt to my best friend. Don't worry, I would gladly do that. But then after that, we got our next match in the World Cup tournament, which was Jinder Mahal versus Braun Strowman. Jinder cut a promo. I wasn't paying attention to the promo because I don't really like paying attention to what Jinder says. But then Braun came out. They had a match. Braun won. Rinse and repeat. But then, like, seeing this match, it constantly reminds me of the heat that Braun Strowman has behind the scenes over his comment on Twitter. It's making me wonder whether this was the right decision to have Braun Strowman in this position. Sure, they're probably going to have Braun maybe ultimately win at this tournament, ultimately at the end, just so we can have Gunther versus Braun Strowman. Both guys really big, both guys very violent. So we'll see what happens, but again, I really hope that we don't have Braun win this tournament. I want someone else to win this tournament, honestly. I think Sami Zayn winning the tournament might be a good choice. That way we can get closer to the Bloodline having a lot of titles. I'm shocked that they didn't have Solo Sikoa in this representing the Isle of Samoa. But yeah, this was a match, alright. Braun Strowman versus Jinder Mahal. It felt like a typical Braun Strowman match, using power, boom, rah, get these hands. It felt very much like that, but I'm curious to see what the World Cup tournament is going to be like. So we'll see what happens next week. But then right after that, B-Fab and Selena Vega were scheduled to have a match, but the Viking Raiders and a returning Sarah Logan came out. The Viking Raiders and Sarah Logan beat down Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma. I'm so happy to see the Viking Raiders back, especially with Sarah Logan. I'm so happy that we're having Sarah Logan back in the WWE and having her a part of the Viking Raiders. Sarah Logan, in my opinion, was very much a misused talent in the Vince McMahon era. I know she's great in the ring, and I love that they're packaging her like this. I really do hope that we eventually get a feud between Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan because of their connection with the Riot Squad. I really do think that it would be a great rivalry between the two because I think that Liv has improved a lot since they first started. I think Sarah Logan, again, great in the ring. So yeah, I would love to see Liv versus Sarah Logan in the future as a rivalry instead of just a, here's a match, we're moving on. No, make that a rivalry. Have them relay the past that they had with each other, because I think that storytelling, like, that would be a great story to tell, how Sarah Logan is now like fully dedicated to the Vikingness of the Viking Raiders, and Liv Morgan is just, hey, I'm Liv Morgan and I'm a little bit more hardcore than the last time you saw me, so yeah, let's go. I think that would be a great feud, and I would love to see the Viking Raiders go on a tear of the tag team division and eventually get to the point of maybe challenging the Usos for the tag team titles. But next up, after that, we got some announcements for next week. It'll be Shayna Baszler versus Shotzi next week, Ricochet versus Mustafa Ali in the World Cup tournament next week, and Butch versus Sami Zayn in the World Cup tournament next week. I'm looking forward to those World Cup tournament matches. I already know that Ricochet and Mustafa Ali are going to be great, and Butch versus Sami Zayn is going to be great because of the storyline that's currently happening between the Brawling Brutes and the Bloodline. And speaking of that, we had the Bloodline cut a promo in the ring talking about how dominant they are, but then Butch and Ridge Holland interrupt and they talk about it and say that they're sick of the Bloodline and they brought backup, and that was when Sheamus returned saying that the end of the Bloodline begins right now, and an entire brawl breaks out between the two teams, and Drew McIntyre comes out and joins forces with the Brawling Brutes to fight the Bloodline. Again, WarGames is getting set up in this match. We're getting closer and closer to getting WarGames, and I feel like it's going to be the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. I'm actually shocked to see Roman Reigns a little bit more connected to this WarGames match. I would have thought that Roman would have not actually been in the WarGames match, but I think Triple H might have convinced Roman and been like, hey, since this is WarGames, since this is a big match, can you do me a solid and be in the match? Because I'm almost betting, I could bet money that the Bloodline's going to win the WarGames match. So I'm just thinking to myself that Triple H was like, hey, this is a big match. We're bringing WarGames to WWE. Would you like to be in the first WWE WarGames match? Like the first official WWE main roster WarGames match. You don't have to be in the other ones after this, but I want you to be in the very first one because you're a big draw and I think you would do great. Roman says yes, knowing that he's going to get the win. The Bloodline's going to get the big win. And I mean, come on. This is a big deal for Survivor Series, for WarGames, and I think it's great to have Roman in it. At first, I didn't think we were going to get Roman, but now just seeing that we're getting closer to actually having Roman in WarGames, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think Survivor Series WarGames is shaping up to be a very great pay-per-view or premium live event. And sorry if you're hearing me wheeze when I'm taking in my breaths, because it's been a rough day and a lot of coughing has been done. But now, that was SmackDown. We're going to move on to AEW Rampage, and it kicked off with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus face-to-face with Jungle Boy. And again, I spoiled it by accident on the AEW Dynamite show because I didn't realize that they didn't announce it. I thought that it was a match that was announced on AEW Dynamite. I was only half paying attention because I have work at the same time as Dynamite happens. So I thought they announced it when I was reading off the Wikipedia page of the matches, but it looks like it was just the TV taping that was being talked about. So this is the event where we got the confirmation of Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus in a steel cage match. Jungle Boy was the one that dropped the challenge, but Christian accepted on Luchasaurus' behalf. Is that a good idea? Maybe not, because Christian should not be accepting Luchasaurus' matches, in my opinion. I know it's not going to be the start of dissent between Luchasaurus and Christian, but it could be. It could easily be, in my opinion. Next up, we had the next round of the AEW Eliminator Tournament, or I think we might have had our first few matches, we had some matches. I think these were some of our first matches, because the first match was at Dynamite, and now we had more matches. Anyway, it was Dante Martin versus Brian Cage. Brian Cage picking up the win to advance in the AEW Eliminator Tournament. And then we had a vignette of the House of Black. I'm very intrigued to see the House of Black, because I could have remembered that Malachi Black left AEW. He was released. But it looks like those reports were false. So we'll see what AEW has in store for the House of Black. And yeah, it's very interesting. It's intriguing to see the House of Black having those vignettes, sort of like Dark Order-esque vignettes, but sort of darker because Dark Order sort of has fallen off recently, whereas the House of Black is still very much darkness personified. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, next up we had the next match in the AEW Eliminator Tournament. Bandito defeating Roosh in the tournament. Bandito is going to go on and face off against Ethan Page. They actually said that Ricky Starks versus Lance Archer, due to Ricky Starks getting attacked by Lance Archer, will be put on hold until Ricky Starks gets back into physical condition, which means that Brian Cage is going to have to wait until Ricky Starks and Lance Archer have their match, whereas at AEW Dynamite, it's going to be Bandito versus Ethan Page. Again, I'm predicting Ethan Page making it to the finals for Full Gear. That's just me. That is just me. But I think it would be great to see Ethan Page in the finals of that tournament. Bandito's a great wrestler. I'm not going to deny that. But I think he's too shiny of a toy for Tony Khan. I think Ethan Page has been there long enough to the point where he has probably made a lot of noise to where Tony Khan's like, all right, I got to throw him a bone. Here's the bone. Go enjoy the bone that I just threw at you and get out of my way. And so I think Ethan Page is going to be the one that gets the big push. But then Nyla Rose had a match against Kayla Sparks. It was a whatever match. Ultimately, it was based off of the main thing afterwards, which was Jade Cargill going after Nyla, but Nyla was able to get out of Dodge. Again, I don't really care about this feud because they haven't really built it up to me. I feel like this is just something, they wanted to give Jade something to do at Full Gear, because of course you want to give Jade something to do, but instead of just having it be hey, we're just going to have you wrestle this person, because why not? They wanted to give her an actual storyline and an actual competitor, and Nyla is a strong competitor to put Jade against, because Nyla has proven herself against many female wrestlers on the roster, and she's a former AEW Women's Champion. So it only makes sense that you would have a dominant force like Nyla Rose go up against Jade Cargill for the TBS title. Again, is Full Gear going to be the event where Jade gets her first loss against Nyla Rose? I don't know. This is honestly a coin toss for me. It's not the biggest coin toss. Like, if I had to bet points on it, if I had to give like a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it maybe like a 4 that Nyla wins. Like, only a 4 because I feel like they want to try to move Jade away from the TBS title and start getting her closer to the AEW Women's title. And I think to them, the only way to do that is to have her drop the belt. But who knows? Who knows what's actually going to happen at Full Gear? Only Tony Khan knows, honestly. Only Tony Khan knows. And then we have a segment backstage where it's Jake Hager meeting with Claudio Castagnoli, talking about how they were a great tag team back in the day, the real Americans in WWE, and that Hager insists that he and Claudio would continue to be a great tag team if Claudio sees things the sports entertainer's way instead of the wrestler's way. Look, I am enjoying this feud between Blackpool Combat Club and the Jericho Appreciation Society, because I love the idea of sports entertainers versus wrestlers, pro wrestlers. I love that this is a major storyline that's happening, because sports entertainers are what the main people in WWE are called, and the people in AEW don't like to be called sports entertainers. They are pro wrestlers. And so I've been very much enjoying this feud. I really hope that it has a good payoff in the Fatal 4-Way match. A part of me wishes Jericho keeps the belt. Another part of me wants Bryan Danielson to win the belt. So I don't know what I want for how I want this Fatal 4-Way match to go. Again, last time I spoke about AEW, I said, oh yeah, I would love to see Chris Jericho retain so that we can have Ring of Honor when they go on TV and to have a heel champion to go up against. But now I'm at the point, now only like a day later of talking about this, I'm like, but imagine if we had a face champion in Bryan Danielson. That would be so much fun. But I don't know. We'll see what they do in the future. And then we get some announcements for next week's AEW Dynamite. Samoa Joe is going to explain why he attacked Wardlow. Is going to be interesting to hear. Toni Storm is going to be facing Allie, or Bunny, from Butcher and the Blade. We haven't actually seen her have a match in a long time, so I'm glad they're going to give her something. Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus before their Fatal 4-Way match. The two tag teams are going to be going up against each other. Ethan Page versus Bandito in the AEW Eliminator Tournament. And the Death Triangle will be going up against Top Flight and AR Fox for the AEW Trios title. Now, that's been a subtle storyline that they've been telling, and I think they're going to eventually have the Death Triangle split up. And it's going to be Pac doing something that the Lucha Bros don't like. And I'm very curious to see how they play out that story, because I very much enjoy that trio, because they're sort of bad guys, but they're not, because Rey Fenix isn't a bad guy, but Penta very much can act like a bad guy. And Pac, you can't tell me Pac's not a bad guy. You can't. He is the bastard Pac for a reason. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that later plays out, because Pac tried to have Rey Fenix use heelish tactics against Orange Cassidy to win the All-Atlantic title, but Rey Fenix said no to that. So we'll see what happens. I really am curious to see if the Death Triangle keep the belt. I wouldn't be surprised if they have the Elite, when they come back at Full Gear, have them go up against the Death Triangle and have the Elite win the Trios title from Death Triangle, and that's when you have Death Triangle split up. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think that would be sort of the direction. If you want to split up Death Triangle, that's sort of the direction I would go with it, personally. But again, that's just me, and I'm not in charge of wrestling. But anyway, we get our main event, which is Orange Cassidy versus Lee Johnson for the AEW All-Atlantic title. It is an Orange Cassidy match, which I love Orange Cassidy matches. Can I just say, Orange Cassidy is a wrestler that should not be over by fans. He should not. He is defying the odds, and I love him so much. Freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy is the best, and he was able to retain the title. I would have been shocked if he lost the title, but I'm very curious to see how his reign is going to continue and who he's going to go up against at Full Gear. Like, I can't think of anyone on the current AEW roster for him to go up against, unless they just pull an outsider, like someone from the UK, someone from Japan, another New Japan wrestler, I don't know. unless they pull one of them, I don't know how you continue this. I wouldn't be shocked if they would have pulled someone, even from Canada. Have someone from Canada go up against Orange Cassidy. Honestly. But yeah, that was AEW Rampage in a nutshell. That was SmackDown and Rampage. I thought they were both very fun shows. I think SmackDown was the better show, personally. But yeah, and it's just because of the Bloodline stuff. I love the Bloodline stuff, and I loved the Brawling Brutes stuff. I cannot wait for Survivor Series WarGames. I think WarGames, Survivor Series WarGames is going to be a fun pay-per-view or premium live event, and I cannot wait to see what Triple H has in store for the audience when it comes to Survivor Series WarGames. But with all that being said, what were your thoughts on SmackDown and Rampage? Whatever your thoughts, post them in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me a lot. Maybe gets this podcast out there to more people so they can watch. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new wrestling podcast episode comes your way. But until next time, I've been Mr. EliMac. You've been the audience, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day.